Hello, and welcome to another Convos with Customers. My name's Eric Martin, head of sales here at Vanta, joined today by Jeff Ernst, co-founder and CEO at SlapFive. Jeff, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric. Glad to be here.
Yeah, excited to learn more about how you're using Vanta. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and just start with a really simple question, which is, what does SlapFive do?
Well, SlapFive is a SaaS vendor. We have an end-to-end software platform for customer marketing and advocacy. And what that really means is we help companies turn their customers into their best sales and marketing people by capturing their voice, and producing customer content, running customer advocacy programs, and running customer reference programs.
It's really interesting. How does that actually play out? So, we have 5,000 customers. We see the kind of 10 out of 10 NPS scores kind of come in on the regular. Like, how might a company like Vanta kind of practically use SlapFive to turn those customers into true marketers for us?
Oh yeah, a lot of ways. And just to name a few, the top of mind, one would be in the same situation that I had, which we'll talk about later, is about our decision to whether or not to do SOC 2 when we did. There's probably a lot of people that have those questions, fears, and doubts of their own as they're going through a decision process about whether to tackle this problem at the time. So imagine if Vanta captured the voice of lots of different customers addressing that issue about how they got everybody on board and consensus with the team to move forward. That just starts to knock down the objections you get. And then if you were to dig into all the other things that tend to cause deals to slow down or cause people to slow down moving through your marketing funnel, at the end of the day, if you think about it, the buyers today, they do have questions, fears, and doubts at every single point. And a buying process is really a bunch of micro decisions that have to be made for them to continue to move along. And there's always hurdles that keep them from moving along. And the best thing that you can do is tap into the voice of your customers to help them get through whatever that hurdle is at that particular point where they have to make that micro decision to continue moving down the process of evaluating you.
It's so true. And I like the way you frame that with these kind of micro decisions. I'm curious, you're one of the founders of the company. Where did the idea for SlapFive come from?
Well, interestingly, I've been the customer guy at every SaaS vendor I ever worked at, whether I was running product management, whether I was running marketing, no matter where I was always the highly empathetic customer-facing guy that would always run the customer programs. It just followed me. And then I had an opportunity after I sold my last startup to go to work at Forrester and be an analyst covering the customer engagement and customer advocacy space and advising CMOs and SaaS companies on how they can better mobilize their customers to drive customer-led growth. And so and then part of that was building a customer program, practicing what I was preaching at Forrester to really engage our customers, to showcase their voice. But there was no technology on the market to support that. So after about a year and a half of running that program, I realized, you know what, this is my next startup idea. And so I left Forrester to go create the technology that I wish I had had while I was working there, running their Forrester Frontlines program, which was the name of the customer engagement program that I created there.
I love that. And isn't it funny how that's so commonly the story of how startups are born? Solving for the problem you faced in a current role or a previous role.
Really?
How big is SlapFive today? How many employees are you?
We're 14 employees and about 50 clients, and
Nice.
all mid to large size SaaS vendors that everybody has heard of. So that's about our scale today.
And who owns security and compliance?
Well, I own it from an executive perspective to make sure we're secure and compliant. And my CTO, Sean Langford, owns it from an implementation and execution perspective.
Got it. Interesting. It's always a question we like to ask folks of companies at different sizes, kind of who owns this. And it's fun behind the scenes. We get to collect data points on kind of when typically do companies add their first dedicated security and or compliance hires. You're certainly within the realm of like companies where kind of you are sharing this responsibility with a CTO.
We are
jumping into the Vanta combo. I'm curious, like, why did you all sign up for Vanta in the first place?
Well, so we were dealing with every single buyer, every single prospect when we would get to that stage where they're ready to move forward and make that final decision, would put us through the ringer on the security side. And they would have us answer these 70-page security questionnaires. And then they would always come down to, are you SOC 2 compliant? And if not, when are you going to be SOC 2 compliant? And so it was just drastically stalling our own sales cycles by not having a good answer for being SOC 2 compliant. And we were spending way too much time filling out all of these questionnaires, every one of them different, and that couldn't be answered in a template. Had to be personally, we had to be typing in responses there, maybe with a little bit of copy and paste. So that's when we realized we just have to tackle this now. And it was a difficult decision for us to make because Sean, our CTO, rightfully was protecting his engineering resources, saying, Jeff, if we do this now, here's a trade-off. You're going to be trading off this amount of function points of new features that we can be developing. Are you sure you want to do that? Yeah. And with 4 people on our development staff, that's a big trade-off to be making. So we got to that breaking point where we said, no more. We have to take the plunge now.
Interesting. And so once you decided kind of to take that plunge, I'm curious, like, was the rest of the team on board at that point? And if not, what did the process look like for getting the rest of the org aligned with this decision?
Yeah, so great question. So our CTO, again, he was pushing back because he was smartly protecting his resources and what could be done. And also he was very concerned about the disruption it would cause, and as well as the time it would take from him personally to do all this. Yet on the sales side, my sales leaders were saying, we have to do this. We have to do this yesterday. And so I was stuck in the middle, getting forces from both sides and realizing, you know what? I need to get my CTO on board with this. And I knew I could. He's a totally reasonable guy. He's just doing what we want him to do, which is protect his resources. And then in just one day, when I had probably had 2 or 3 sales calls with people really burning us with questions about security, that's when I got the email from the Vanta sales rep out of the blue. It's talking about, hey, we have a way of doing this that plugs into all of your technology stack and automates a lot of the data capture and the history capture and the logging. And then we have all these templates for you that allow you to document your processes without having to start from scratch. And my first thought was, well, this is too good to be true. So I said, I'm not going to believe this. I'm going to get her on a call with Sean, my CTO, and have her walk through what all of that means. And we did. And sure enough, my CTO was like, he was blown away. He said, oh my God, this is going to really cut the burden of doing this in half, if not more. And
amazing.
So that's why we decided to move forward when we did with Vanta, because compared to the other options we were looking at that were simply just an audit, hiring a CPA firm to audit, but all the heavy lifting following on us, this just took a lot of that heavy lifting off of our shoulders.
Yeah. I'm curious, had you or your CTO or anyone on your staff kind of been through a SOC 2 in the past?
I had not myself, and my CTO had, and it was a big burden. And so this predated Vanta. This was probably maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Not sure. I'm not sure if that's predates Vanta, but predates us knowing about Vanta.
Yeah.
And he had gone through the process, and it was an absolute nightmare. And it just basically stopped all development for about 3 months. And it was an all hands on deck effort to go through especially the documentation process, and then showing proof of adherence to the policies that we had documented. He said it was just an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious. Which type of SOC 2 report do y'all
have? We've got the SOC 2 Type 1 right now, and we're working with you guys currently on the SOC 2 Type 2.
Nice, amazing. Are there any parts of the kind of platform that the team has kind of especially appreciated now that you've kind of had some time to use it and also go through a successful audit?
Yeah, I think the fact that it hooked into our GitHub, it hooked into our Google Cloud platform and some of our other development tools, that was super powerful, especially for logging and doing some of the automated data capture that happens. So that was the one thing that was especially appealing to us that really set Vanta apart. And then the other thing I would say would be having a lot of the templates for the processes.
Yeah.
So Sean took care of all of the DevOps oriented, back-end engineering oriented policies in terms of documenting them. And I did all the ones that were more front office facing and business related,
Nice.
documenting our employee processes, board of directors type things, all of those. But again, starting with templates just made it so much easier than just have to make stuff up from scratch.
Yeah. A lot of times when folks are kind of doing this for the first time, there are any kind of number of anxieties centered around kind of doing it right and kind of not failing, the audit. And to that end, we take a lot of pride in not only the software that we've built, but also the humans that we make available, whether it's kind of a customer success manager, an in-house CPA, et cetera. I'm curious, how did you and your team, or how kind of do you and your team kind of leverage our human resources in kind of going through this process?
So we leveraged them quite a bit. And so the team that we worked with on that was actually guiding us through the audit, I mean, they were fantastic in terms of keeping us on track and keeping us aware of all the steps that we needed to do, and steps that would keep the process going, as fast as possible, because that was important to us. And then I also have to give a shout out to Haley Burns, who was the sales rep who we first worked with. She was absolutely amazing. That she could answer all the business questions and was pretty deeply technical as well in the whole process. And I leaned on her to help get Sean and the rest of the team on board with doing it, because we couldn't stump her. Every question we threw at her to try to stump her, she handled in flying colors.
Well, we call Haley the goat over here. She's our definitely our top rep, certainly from a booking standpoint. And I think when we think about staffing our sales team here, there's kind of two components: there's skills and there's knowledge. And kudos to Haley; she's really leaned in and kind of learned a ton on the knowledge side around security and compliance. But yeah.
And I can't tell you how important that is when you haven't even made the decision yet, and you're talking with a sales rep, and they don't have to say, "Oh, I'll get back to you next week. Let me go research that question for you." But she just jumped on the phone. I said, "Well, you sure you don't want to bring a sales engineer on?" Just no, I don't need that.
I love that.
She just blew us away, and even my CTO. I mean, everything he threw at her, I didn't even understand the questions he was throwing at her, and she came back with an answer that he was totally confident in.
I love that. Well, I appreciate that shout out. I guess just kind of bringing this to a close here, I'm curious, from you and your team's perspective, are there any things that come to mind that you think we should build next?
Well, and you may actually have these things, I'm not sure, but the next area that I want to investigate working with you guys after we do our SOC 2 level 2 is we still, in a lot of cases, still have to do DPAs and security questionnaires. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking, I would really love to have a way to more efficiently respond to the security questionnaires. So if there could be a question bank or even a predefined generic templated one that we could send back to people saying, we think this covers all your questions here, but here it is. But some way just to reduce the need. So far, we have greatly reduced the need by being SOC 2 level 1 compliant, and expect SOC 2 level 2 will help as well. But nevertheless, there are still people that need to see it on their Excel spreadsheets. They need to see these questions answered.
Yeah, it's a common misconception that just having the SOC 2 makes the questionnaires disappear entirely. And so to that end, there is a new product that we've rolled out. I think you have access to it, called our trust reports, that are effectively allow you to create a custom kind of public security status page where you can kind of present your SOC 2 behind an NDA. You can upload previously filled out security questionnaires, especially common ones, so that these vendors can see those in advance of asking you again to fill them out. You can also show them kind of the real-time passing status of certain technical controls pulled from Vanta. I should also mention we have a new partnership with a security questionnaire vendor called Staxi. They're another Y Combinator company. We kind of tie in on the back end to them, such that like when you get a questionnaire, regardless of the file type, you upload it to Staxi, they'll use your information from Vanta to kind of pre-populate that questionnaire as best they can, and then spit that back to you, in a kind of a certain SLA. So,
all right,
really good news. And I think we hopefully have you covered there.
Yes.
But I will I have two final questions, I guess. One is, are you a piano player? I see the piano behind you.
I am, and I wish I could play more. I actually went from having an upright 100-year-old real piano to the electric piano at the beginning of COVID, thinking, oh, I'm going to have all this time to play. It didn't actually work out that way because our business just took off and I got busier than ever when COVID hit. So, but it is there. I like to play for relaxation every now and then.
Well,
But
we're
that's
still
about
we're
it.
we're still in the market for a jingle for these Convos with customer videos, so I might kind of
Okay.
contract you for that afterwards. But any final words for folks that might be listening?
I guess I would just say, if I were to give a piece of advice to people, is I, I wish I had done it sooner. And so
Hmm.
if you're hemming and hawing or delaying or stalling, once you take the plunge and do it, it's not going to be as big a burden as you thought. And I'm talking about the SOC 2 audit. And you're going to be glad that you did it, and you're going to wish you did it sooner as well. Once you realize, and your salespeople are going to thank you for it too. So if you have any doubts about whether you should be doing SOC 2 and working with Vanta for it, I mean, talk to your salespeople if you don't already know about the pain that they're feeling, and get it firsthand from them. That's going to give you all the ammunition you need.
I love it. Well, bringing it full circle, SlapFive, turning your customers into your biggest marketers. Jeff, we appreciate you taking the time today. And once again, we really appreciate you being a Vanta customer.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Great chatting with you, Eric.
All right. Likewise.
Right.
Thanks again.
Okay. Bye.